So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Andy Miller on. Now, myself and Andy have been working together for the last, I think, 5, 6 months. We were just chatting offline, and I wanted to get Andy on to talk about his experience working with me within the business, but also just for his story, because I think, like a lot of gents watching and listening to this, um, lots going on. Lots juggling with family, work, business, the usual story, and feeling like you're struggling a bit, but then actually being able to have a little look at yourself, take ownership, and start to thrive. I think it's really important. So before we kick off, Andy, do you want to just introduce yourself, a bit about you, what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Luke. So I am 39 years old. I'm a father of two boys. One's 4 years old, and the youngest is 2 years old. I'm self-employed. I'm a self-employed vet. So looking at different practices, but also we've set up an export business, myself and my fiance. So we're juggling quite a bit, I would say. Yeah, self-employed business and young family. And like many others, just trying to look after ourselves as well.
Yeah, right in the thick of it. And I think it's one of those ones I can totally relate, 41, 3 kids, business, wife works for the business, and so it's lots going on, all exciting, great stuff, but equally it can be quite a lot to juggle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we've sort of seen a bit of the light at the end of the tunnel with the boys. 2 and 4, we're getting out of the baby stage, and it's becoming a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say easier, but things change, don't they? So it's good.
It's an evolution, isn't it? I think like I can relate. So our youngest here now is 4, nearly 5, and there's a phase when they're really little where it's great and it's cute, but it's just absolutely full on. And I think it becomes mad in a different way, but it's a little bit more manageable, right? A bit more breathing room.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you definitely put that ahead of other things in your life. And sometimes, I think one of the reasons why I got in touch with you, obviously, was just to get a reality check and sort of refocus again.
Well, that's a nice segue onto kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So let's rewind a few months into the past. You'd possibly, I think, seen a few of my bits on LinkedIn. What was going on for you back then that made you think, right, like you said, your words, reality check? What was going on that made you think, you know what, I want to have a chat with somebody like me to get some help?
Yeah, I think like a lot of others, like it's been for a little while in the back of my head. There was this like little niggle, um, probably to do with the boys and like difficult family life in terms of like the young kids and managing work, but also just not quite feeling like on top of myself. And so there's this niggle at the back of my mind, thinking that I could do this better. It doesn't need to be this hard. You start looking, you just become aware of things, don't you? So, social media, LinkedIn, start listening to podcasts, reading different bits and pieces, um, and ultimately came across your social media. But I sort of my sort of I actually, it was about a year before I started chatting to you that I really started to sort of look at what I could do to help myself, and I actually went down the route of getting some therapy, so some one-on-one
Nice.
conversation therapy. Um, I think we it was sort of just I was just feeling really overwhelmed and couldn't quite structure my life to a way that I felt like I was on top of things. And Cerise, my fiance, and our boys went away on holiday one time, and we just had a chat. And we said, well, why don't we go and have a chat with a therapist? And that really did help, sort of. Raise sort of like my self-awareness about myself, and I'm someone that's very much like, I'm the only one that works in the family, so I very much try and uh, or was very focused on trying to support the family in such a way that I then forgot about myself a little bit. And it's uh, yeah, that sort of like that therapy sessions just sort of helped highlight that. But coming off the back of that, about 6 months of that, got my self awareness up, but I didn't feel like I was actually doing anything. You know,
Mhm.
it was just sort of like, oh, you could try this, could try that, but there was no sort of uh, effort or accountability, I would say. Uh, and that's where I've been watching your social media. You're very straight talking, and you sort of like really sort of rang true with what I was feeling at that time, and that's why I decided to reach out.
Yeah, there's a few things there to unpick. Firstly, I mean, well done for having the self awareness to recognise that you needed some therapy and someone to talk to, and you get to a point where like, hold up, things aren't quite working here. Something
Yeah,
needs to
yeah,
change. Talk about it, and I think therapy is incredibly powerful to give you insights, understanding. I've had absolutely loads of therapy. I always say this to people: if you ever work with a coach that hasn't had therapy, isn't in therapy, or doesn't have a coach themselves, they're a fraud. Because who am I to help others with their own development? Am I the finished article? Absolutely no way. Right? I need help like everyone else. Might be slightly different things we work on, but it doesn't matter. It's the same difference. So, I'm kind of caveating what I'm about to say about therapy because it's important. It is super powerful. I think though, what can happen is like you described there, Andy, is you get some amazing insights. You learn more about yourself. You become more aware of what's going on and why. Not always, but a lot of the time, then it's like, well, where's the action? I want to do something to address this. And I think for me, that's where sometimes, especially for gents as well, because a lot of therapy is talk oriented. Guys, we want to talk about it. We do need to discover, but then we go, right, well, what the fuck are we actually going to do about this? Like, what's the action? What's the plan? What's the stuff to do? And I think for me, where what how I work generally, but just generally for men in general, I think is we want to be able to have like problems to solve and things to do. And I think when we spoke, I remember you were a bit like, well, I feel a bit better about that, but I'm still not doing the stuff, and I still feel like it's a bit insurmountable. So it's like, well, what do we do, as in the action and sort of behaviours, in order to make things happen? Does that make sense? And are we on the same page there?
yeah. Definitely, it's like that. I definitely had the mentality of problem solving. You know, um, let's find the income for the family. Let's if there's something. If Cerise, my fiance, was struggling a bit or whatever, let's get the boys into nursery a bit more, or trying to find those solutions. But I wasn't necessarily aware that perhaps in say my relationship, like that's not always the solution to things. You have to sort of listen and
Yeah.
make sure, as opposed to just, oh, here's the answer that you're looking for, sort of thing. But also by doing that, you're generally just burning yourself out, because I was always looking after. Well, I like to think I was trying to look after everyone else. Um, but that then meant, earlier mornings to get a bit of work done before the boys get up, later nights once they've gone to bed, trying to manage the workload that way. And having been someone that's always liked to think that I've been to the gym and like looked after my fitness and diet and things like that, it's just a slow creep into sort of not going anymore. Diet goes off the rails. And then I think that was the niggle that I wasn't quite realizing at the time, that was in the back of my mind. And it takes someone to sit across the room from you and say, well, actually that's probably why it is. Yeah.
Kind of almost sort of martyrdom to everyone else. And I don't say that in a belittling way, but that's that you're trying to fix and help and look after everyone else, but then you forget to look after yourself as a part of that, physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole lot. And it's not like malintentioned. It's quite the opposite. You want to help and support, but you kind of sort of throw yourself under the bus in the process because you're not taking care of yourself. And then the issue there then is that actually all the stuff you're trying to do gets diluted because you're not feeling your best, and you end up everyone else gets a more diluted version of you as a product of you actually trying to help. And so it becomes this negative feedback loop. And then those basic things of like, well, I identify as someone who is fit, healthy, takes care of himself, and none of that's happening. You're like, oh, that don't feel good. And actually, that has an impact on me and my self esteem and how I feel. Then it negatively bleeds into everywhere else. And then you talk about things like, well, an interaction with your missus or your relationship or at work. Like, well, why am I being a bit short and snappy? And why am I not that? And it's like, I guess there's fundamental psychological things around that, but there's also just like, I just feel a bit shit. And so
Yeah.
because of that,
Yeah.
that has a knock on effect in how you're showing up. Does that make sense? And so I think
Yeah.
once we start to turn it around and look at your part in that, and that's that action piece as well, right? Because if you can see all that, that's great. It's like, well, I want to fix this. I want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
better in that.
Definitely. Yeah.
When you've got all that going on, it can be really hard to go, well, where do I start and what do I do? And I can't spend 2 hours a day in the gym. And I can't just, not touch my phone for 10 years and go and live in a cave and be zen like a monk. Well, no, you can't do any of those things. But I think then it's about, well, let's take a step back and look at what you can do to look after yourself and everyone else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said just there is really true. So, Cerise said to me, why does everyone else get the best version of you?
Mm,
And in the household, you're like, well, I guess it's sort of reestablishing that balance between work and life, isn't it? And then
yeah.
realizing that actually, it's the life part that you want to focus on. Um, even I love work, and it's reason why I do it, and I really enjoy what I do and things. But it's easy sometimes to let that take over, and then not put the same effort and structure into your own life and relationships with your friends and family and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I've got a theory as well there where, again, you don't like if someone said, "Do you want to be a dickhead at home?" I don't mean you, just the royal you, right? And you'd be like, "Of course I don't. I want to be a nice husband. I want to be a good dad." But then it happens. There's a part of it where you are still responsible, right? So let's just put that to one side. But then, like, if it's like I don't want that, but it's happening, well, why? I also think that if you're not feeling your best, everything's a bit insurmountable, well, like, you'll get to work and do your job there and be diligent, but you have to overexert to hit normal. And so to hit baseline, you gotta be like, "Right," and so you get it's a bit like the analogy I've given before is like going down a motorway in second gear. It's like, "Wee!" You're getting the job done, but it's not efficient. So you're at that work doing that. It's all great, yeah, blah, 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 and everyone gets the best version of you. You come home, you're like, "Ugh." So your bandwidth for anything else is absolutely squished. So then a small interaction where you might just laugh about it, like what I'd say is, one of the 2-year-old throws a ball of pasta at the wall, smash, like you have a shout at them or laugh about it. And I think in the state where you're going down the motorway in second gear, you're much more likely to be like, and that's where you get this. Well, everyone's getting a crap version of you. Now, the truth is you're still responsible for your behavior and all of that as well, and that's what we talk about. But you can sort of see how it can play out, but also how you can get stuck in it and go, well, I don't want to be a knobhead, but why am I doing this and what's going on? I'm trying my best, but I feel like I'm like pushing a boulder up a hill, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That short snappiness with the boys, and it's not through any thought or intention. It's just the way you're feeling, isn't it? And your reaction to that situation at that time. And if you can make yourself more resilient or prepared for those situations, then you get a better outcome, don't you? And ultimately, an easier time at home and relationships and that sort of thing.
Totally. Well, and I think that helps us sort of move on nicely to, that's where we were, Andy. As we sit today or stand, what have been your key learnings and takeaways? And the word you said there I love is resilience, right? Because I like to think that as much as like I want my clients and everyone to be like, yeah, life's great and I'm peaking, it's all fantastic. I think we can all agree that that's not always life isn't always like that. And so for me, I think optimizing for stressful, busy, mental, and being resilient in that. So then when it's not, oh, it's easy. But when it is, you've got those guardrails. So can you speak to that? Because that's kind of what you were just starting to touch on then, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. So I think I think one of the things that you said very early on when I first started talking to you was the how it's sort of thinking about your day and how you've behaved and acted within that day, but then considering the day before or the night before in terms of what you've done that will then lead to that result. Um, and I was very much when I first started chatting to you was like late night, um, not having a good nighttime routine essentially, and then expecting 100% the next morning, and the time the sort of time frame when I started talking to you was my quiet time in work, which was a perfect opportunity, therefore, to sort of get into what you do, build some resilience. So that an example was in December when we're really really busy. I handled that so much better than the previous year, and I can see that in the way that um, my home life is, my weight, work as well was just so much easier. And I think if you build that foundation, then when those busy times, stressful times come along, you're in a better way to sort of manage it, and it does genuinely sort of pay dividends.
Yeah. And that's something that people, but I guess guys I might work with, potential clients, would say is that, oh well, maybe I'll wait until it's a bit quieter or a bit calmer, or when I've got my ducks in a row, or that's the story. It's like, well, if you're honest with yourself, when does that? When is that? When
Yeah,
has that
yeah,
ever been? Especially for like typically the kind of guys I talk to and work with, late 30s through to early mid 50s, businesses, senior work, kids, all that. Like, when is that ever calm? And it's not. And so to pretend otherwise, I think you're sort of lying to yourself, really, aren't you? And so I know you
yeah.
had a slight quite a spell, but it wasn't quiet. Do you know what I mean?
No,
But then
no.
but then if you recognise that, well, it's always going to be hectic, well, that's the point. That's what you need to solve. You need to solve for it being crazy. Like I had a gent a while back, and he worked for one of the big four accountancy firms. He was like a partner, and his one of his things was like travel just messed everything up for him, right? And so we had our chat, and at the end of it, he was like, "Right, Luke, want to do it? Sounds great." I was like, "Okay, let's kick off then." And he's like, "No, no, we're gonna wait because I've got this period where I'm not traveling for like it's a bit weird for like 3 or 4 weeks. We'll start then." I was like, "What?" And I went, "No." And he went, "What do you mean no?" I was like, "What's your problem?" "Oh, that I can't do stuff when I'm traveling. So what do we need to fix?" He's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think that's the thing. So that's why I think like we were saying here, like life is busy and hectic. Yeah, that's the point. And so you need to show yourself that you can cope within that. And I've shared this a few times recently. And you heard me say this as well, Andy. I think, like, not that I want my clients to go through hardship and have difficult times, but as a coach, the biggest buzz I get is when someone goes, "Oh, it's a shit week," but I'm good. And like it's that. You see what I mean? Like it was hectic and this happened, that happened. And you had lots of stuff business wise going. And you've had a lot of stresses, and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good though. I'm okay. I'm holding the line. I'm all right at home. Like not perfect, but I think that for me feels good. But I think not that you want to be having difficult things in your life, but when you feel resilient like that and life isn't steamrolling you, you feel pretty good as well, right? And then when you've had a great week, you've had a great week, you know. But like that, we can't control that. But we can control you and how you're able to cope with it all, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing is that I was expecting when I first joined the Blueprint, almost to be a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that was coming my way. And I think the way you build it up, which is like small changes in your life, there isn't really a great deal to do, even if you are in those busy periods. You've just got to
Uh-huh.
follow those key changes each week. And I was amazed how quick those sort of um, consolidate into something bigger. So
Yeah.
I think if I spoke to myself a year ago, I probably would have reached out a little bit sooner because I didn't realize the way it was structured and how easy it is to adapt to that. Really.
Yeah, and that speaks to what we were just saying there, doesn't it? About, oh, well, oh my God, I'm going to have time and I want to make sure I've got time to commit to it and all the rest of it. And I was like, that is the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
And I'm aware where that comes from is because perhaps maybe you've seen maybe something more fitness based or PT stuff or other forms of trying to work on yourself, and it requires loads of effort and you've got loads of stuff. And like there is some effort that needs to be applied, and we need to think about stuff. But like if the people that I work with, if this was going to work, me throwing a load of shit at you, like, it's just not going to help. Well, it's also, I think, most of the people that I work with, and probably the guys who listen to this podcast, quite driven, type A. I'm gonna fucking do it all or nothing. That kind of like really
Yeah. Yeah.
dialed in mentality. Well, like this is almost pushing against that and go, no, just do that. Yeah, what's that going to do? Well, you're not doing it, and probably a lot, but just give it, and you go, oh my god, a few small things do help, but then also going through the process and some of it falling over, and someone going, that's okay, don't worry about it, keep going. Whereas historically, you'd be like, nah, and just stop. And you put that together, and all of a sudden, in a short space of time, like a few small things done consistently, and I feel loads better. But I think when we're on our own, or maybe you've seen some of these things in isolation, you don't quite realize the impact it can have. So having a process to help you sort of feel that is, I mean, I'm biased, of course, but is incredibly helpful, right?
Yeah, I think so. It just comes second nature, and yeah, it like a lot of people have said on your podcast or what have you. The bad weeks are far better than the good weeks that before working with you, really, and I guess that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, and we speak about this, myself and you, Andy, but then other gents as well. And it's that being able to, yeah, what you said there. Go, okay, well, yeah, oh god, it's a bit difficult, and that's this has been hard, and I've done that. I was like, well, what have you done? Well, I've done this, and this. And, okay, well, let's play that week out a year ago before doing any of this. Oh, it
Yeah,
would have been a complete show. And so,
yeah,
again, that's the whole thing of like, it doesn't mean it isn't difficult. It doesn't mean there's still bits we can't work on. But actually, if you're able to look at it and do the sliding door split test, you go, hold up, actually, I'm doing really well here. But again, I think if you're out on your own in the wild, it's hard to have that perspective for yourself. There's mechanisms we can give you and build on that, so you can self-reflect and do that, which is important.
yeah,
But I think it's difficult to be able to do that. And I think most people, if they're trying to work on themselves, will often focus on all the stuff they haven't done
yeah,
versus looking at what they have. And invariably, when we just take a step back, because often, especially early in the process, a lot of guys be saying, and you might have said to me, like, "Oh, it's been shit, and I've done that and done that." I go, okay, fine. Well, let's look at that. But well, what did you do? Well, I did this, and this, and I did that, and I had this conversation would have been different. Okay, doesn't that sounds pretty good, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, maybe it is actually. But we can get very focused on what's not working. And so for me as a coach, part of it's been able to show you both. And the two things can be true, right? It can be like, that was a bit of shit, we can improve on that. But actually all the other stuff was great. And it's being able to hold that. And I think when we're on our own, the what we often do is kind of focus on what hasn't worked, decide that it's all gone pear shaped, and then say, "Oh, I'm going to stop." And it's not the, whatever it is the event that you think it is; it's the fuck it, I'm going to stop, and that's what stops progress. If you're able to just, let's just chill out and keep going. Well, then you get to where we are, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think before I joined, there was an element, and I think a lot of people feel this of like self pity a bit. And then when you come
Mhm.
in and you see the other guys that are doing the same course as you, um, you realize that everyone's going through the same sort of things, or fundamentally the same sort of issues, and have the same sort of excuses of missing out on things, or same worries or challenges, and what have you. I think on the collective WhatsApp group I think it was this week or last week, there's a conversation about how to approach a night out, and I read through it. I didn't actually take part in it, but I read through it, and it was almost like an internal monologue of my own mind. Yeah, I was thinking, oh yeah, really relate to that, and how different people approach it, and getting straight back up the next day, and making sure that you hit some of the fundamentals and what have you. And I just thought, yeah, it's quite nice to know that other people are out there thinking thinking along the same lines.
It's reassuring, isn't it? And that's the power of the group process, I think, because you get to hear others and go, "Oh, well, it's not just me." And actually, they're thinking exactly like that, and they're struggling with that. And maybe someone that you might look at and go, "They've got it all sorted out in the real world, right?" Or
Yeah,
outside of a coaching process, and then you see that person going, "Oh, this is happening, that happened, and I didn't speak great to my missus. I'm pissed off." Oh, God, it just me. Other people find
yeah,
this
yeah,
difficult,
yeah.
but then the same guy going, okay, well, what can I do? And I'll do that. And someone else gives them a bit of advice. Go, okay, I'll try that. So you go, not only can I relate to others that are going through similar problems, those same people are giving it a crack and trying to move forward. So that kind of can empower you to do the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And little things as well, like, I was struggling with like bath time with my children and getting Snappy and things like that. And people have chipped in to help out on those sort of things as well. So, um, yeah, the group element is something that's surprisingly like rewarding, and you get a lot out
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
I think that's probably the most common feedback is that some guys, are a bit like, yeah, sounds great. I'm up for that. I'd say a large majority are like, yeah, group, okay, sort of get it. And fine, Luke, I trust you and I trust the process. We'll give it a crack. And then some are just like, whoa, no way. Um, I think the people who are the more reticent and decide to move forward, because there's a small percentage who are like, "No, I'm just not doing that," which is fine. The ones who are more reticent are a bit like, "I'm not sure." You go in it and you go, "Oh my god, this is amazing," like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of all the reasons we've just said. But I think until you feel and experience that, it's kind of a hard one to really understand until you actually get it and you go, "Oh, yeah, great," because it's that almost that relief of, "Oh, there's other people struggling and that's okay." But then, not that we're all like wallowing in our self pity, like you said. It's a no, well, we're struggling. What's the problem? What are we going to do? How can we fix it? And let's put some action in place. And I think for men especially, we like that. It's like there's a problem. Let's get through with it. And now, right, here's something to try and just to fix it. And I think just doing that on loop to yourself and seeing others doing that, I think creates quite a powerful experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it. And just the fact that there's people on there chatting away, you can take as much or leave as much as you want, but it's always reassuring to know that the group are there, for support and what have you.
Well, Andy, it's been a pleasure chatting, and I know you've got a tight morning this morning, so I won't take up any more of your time. If someone's sitting listening to this and watching this, and they're kind of resonating, especially with where you were when we first spoke, what would you say to someone in that position back then, as as you're feeling now, and whether that's to work with me or not doesn't really matter, but more so someone in that kind of headspace and situation.
Yeah, I think it's to know that they're probably not alone in feeling what they feel, and if they were to chat to people like yourself, things there's help. There's help out there, in all sort of manner of your life, whether that's your exercise, mental health, or diet, or what have you. But I would say take the hard work away. Don't try and do it yourself. I think, in work, or hobbies, or whatever, we always have lessons, or education and structure in our lives. And so for something like your own health and mental support and that sort of thing, then go reach out and do the same for those as well.
Thank you. Well, of course, I was going to say this, but I couldn't agree more. I would totally agree. But it's true. I think we are one, and this was me a few years ago. Like, you would have a golf coach if you want to get better at golf. You have a business coach if you want to get better at business. You want to get a mortgage advisor, a financial advisor, you get a financial advisor. But if you're struggling a bit with life and overwhelmed and the discipline and boundaries and all that, you go, "Oh, I'll just do it myself." I think because it's you. But just like anything else, there are people, spoiler alert, myself included, that can help you take a step back and have a look and address it, right? And sometimes I think you have to repeat patterns of behavior and go, actually, it's not working. I need a time out to have some fresh perspective. And so, of course, I would totally agree. And you can do it yourself. It's just more difficult.
With in this sort of like headspace, you do go and look and read at different things and listen to podcasts and what have you. But all credit to you, Luke. Like, a lot of those things that you read and listen to are already built into this program. And so, it's really well thought through. And I think it's almost like a bit of a cheat code, really. And
Yeah, yeah. And, and
definitely.
again, and putting those pieces together, right, in a coherent way, which is what the process is about, is very helpful. And I mean, proofs in the pudding, mate. Like, you're a prime example, and it's been great working with you. And for transparency, we're still working together, and I'm loving it. And we'll continue to build on stuff, because I believe we're all ongoing projects. But I think now it's from a very empowered place, and like looking at the bigger picture and exciting stuff. And it's great. So, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. Thank you for taking the time to
No
speak
problems.
today. I know anyone listening will have got a lot out of it, and I certainly have. If anyone is watching or listening and they're interested in working with me or having a chat, just drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers, Andy.
Thanks, Luke. Cheers.